10 extinct creatures that could wipe out humans if alive today. Number 10. Megalodon. This was a whale monster that lived about 65 million years ago. It had teeth like daggers, which it used to tear into prey and gobble them up whole. It had a huge skull, enormous jaws, and its teeth were the size of bananas. These whales would have made quick work of human settlements. Luckily for us, this whale went extinct way before humans ever existed. However, this whale monster has not been studied enough to know for sure how big it got. Scientists estimate that it reached lengths of around 18 meters. That's just under 60 feet. Now, imagine seeing such a creature breach the surface of the water near your home. You would need more than a life vest to survive that. No. 9. Gigantopithecus. This was an absolutely massive ape that lived until about 100,000 years ago, stood up to 3 meters tall and weighed over 500 kilograms. That's nearly double the size of a silverback gorilla. It had shorter arms than modern great apes, and it used those arms to simply beat its chest and attract a mate. It also had a gigantic sagittal crest on top of its head, which is an area that all great apes have, but which is only very small in humans. The crest is a bony structure that gives tendons and ligaments something to attach to. So when the animal roared, its roar would have echoed through the valley and could probably be heard miles away. If it were alive today, it would probably be endangered or possibly even extinct due to habitat loss. But if it were alive, we might see it as a terrifying new species of Bigfoot. Number 8. Helicoprion. This was a shark monster that had a spiral-shaped tooth in its upper jaw. It lived during the early part of the Cretaceous period, and it grew to immense sizes. We're talking 15 meters long. But its most striking feature wasn't its teeth, it was its gill plates. They were reinforced with cartilage, making them hard as steel. The shark would have used these steel plates to slice through prey with ease. Researchers are uneven sure what this shark ate since they didn't find a stomach in their fossil remains. Some researchers think that it hunted other sharks and even whales. Others think it fed on fish eggs. Whatever it ate, we can bet it would have had no problem tearing through a human or two. This shark went extinct around 145 million years ago, likely thanks to an asteroid impact that caused a mass extinction. Number 7. Titanoboa. This was the largest snake that ever lived. It grew to lengths of 13 meters and weighed around 1,100 kilograms. That's about as long as a Tyrannosaurus rex and about as heavy as a blue whale. This snake had more than 260 teeth, each one as long as an incisor, and every single one of these teeth was serrated. This snake lived about 40 million years ago in North America, but it was also found in Europe and Asia. There are actually 2 species of Titanoboa that paleontologists have discovered: Titanoboa ceruginoensis and Titanoboa antigua. Both of these snakes were truly gigantic, but they weren't really scary. They were actually constrictors, meaning they squeezed their prey to death before swallowing it. They probably wouldn't have been able to chase down humans, but they could definitely crush us to death if we got too close. No. 6. Smilodon fatalis. This was one of the scariest cats that ever roamed the earth. It was a saber-toothed cat that lived until about 11,000 years ago. Its ancestors were normal-sized cats that evolved into larger and more ferocious creatures. It stood up to 1.2 meters at the shoulder and was around 3 meters long. This is comparable to a modern lion, except a saber-toothed tiger was heavier, bulkier, and more muscular. And of course, it had those giant saber-like teeth that could easily slash open a human chest and drain us of blood. This cat went extinct after the last ice age. We don't know exactly why. It may have been because it needed large amounts of wild game to survive. But whatever the reason, we can be thankful that we never had to face off against one of these beasts. Number 5. Smilodon gracilis. Another saber-toothed cat, another potential human killer. This cat lived about 2 million years ago, and it was smaller than Smilodon fatalis, standing only about 90 centimeters at the shoulder and measuring around 2.5 meters in length. But what this cat lacked in size, it made up for in ferocity. It was incredibly fast and agile, and it could leap onto its prey and disembowel it with its saber teeth. It was also incredibly powerful, able to take down large prey such as horses and camels, lived in North and South America, and had hunted in much the same way as modern lions in groups. Can you imagine a pride of these cats taking down a human? In groups of up to 10, these cats would have torn us apart in seconds. Luckily, these cats are now extinct, thanks to, you guessed it, the Ice Age. Number 4. Archinoceros. This was a true monster, was related to the Ankylosaurus, and it was covered in massive plates of armor. It was about 3 meters long, and it looked like a mix between a crocodile and a Volkswagen Beetle. It lived about 230 million years ago, and it was a distant relative of the modern-day armadillo. It had a tail that was spiked like a mace, and it used this tail to smash and kill its prey. It also had a beak like a crocodile, which it used to tear into flesh and gobble it up. What makes this creature especially unique is that it was amphibious. It spent time both on land and in water. In fact, it probably swam like a crocodile. If this thing were alive today, it would probably be a protected species. After all, who would want to mess with a mini-armored crocodile? No, 3 ambulocetas. This was a whale monster that lived about 50 million years ago. It had the body of a crocodile, the tail of a fish, the ears and eyes of a cat, and the teeth of a shark. It was about 6 meters long, and it could run on land and swim in water. This means that it could hunt both on land and in water. It had claws on its front flippers, which it used to slash and tear into prey. It also had a narrow snout and a gigantic mouth full of sharp teeth. These teeth were perfect for catching and killing fish, but they would have no trouble tearing into human flesh either. This whale monster went extinct around 40 million years ago, but luckily for us, it never grew to gigantic sizes. If it had grown to the size of a sperm whale, it would have been truly terrifying. Number 2. Osteostriga. This was a fish monster that lived about 365 million years ago. It was about 6 meters long and weighed about 680 kilograms. It had huge jaws and teeth like meat cleavers. It used these jaws and teeth to tear apart its prey and gobble it up. This fish was actually an early relative of today's sharks and rays. It was a cartilaginous fish, which means that unlike most fish, it didn't have a skeleton made of bone. Instead, its skeleton was made of cartilage. This made it incredibly flexible, but it also made it a lot weaker. If this fish were alive today, it would be hunted by sharks and whales. But back then, it was the apex predator. It ruled the oceans and had no predators of its own. It went extinct around 359 million years ago. We don't know exactly why, but it may have had something to do with the fact that it grew way too big. After all, it was one of the largest animals that ever lived. No. 1. Dunkleosteus, Torelli. This was the biggest freshwater fish that ever lived. It had a skull about 1.5 meters wide, and its teeth were as sharp as knives. It used these teeth to slice through flesh and cut up its prey. It also had huge pectoral fins that it used to steer itself through the water. These fins were about 2 meters across. It lived about 360 million years ago, and it was one of the top predators in its ecosystem. There's actually some debate about whether this fish could grow to lengths of 10 meters. If it did grow that big, it would have been absolutely terrifying. But even at its maximum confirmed size of 6 meters, it was still a monster. This fish went extinct around 354 million years ago. We don't know exactly why, but it may have had something to do with the fact that it was way too big. After all, it was one of the largest animals that ever lived. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe if you haven't yet. See you next time.